On behalf, I'd like to thank the Widcombe Association for allowing us to field this event and Bath Film Festival for providing the resources. Thank you very much for coming and receiving it. It's a topic that I can see is close to people's hearts. We were sold out in this event. We had to turn people away. Well, not really. I think they're probably outside the door. But, thank you. I'm going to very briefly introduce the panel to you, and then we'll go over to, I think we'll start with the film's director for some comments. So we're going to start at this end. This is Eleanor Field, and Eleanor is the leader of the Green Party in Bath. Is that right?
Well, I was the candidate in the general election, yes.
And sitting next to her is Zaria. And Zaria is a resident, a Curo resident. She says she doesn't live in Foxhill, but she's one of Curo's residents, so I'm sure what she's got to say is going to be very interesting. And then we come to Paul. Paul is the writer and director of the film you've just seen, and I'm going to ask him to lead off in a moment with some comments on why he made the film and why he thinks it's important that we should all see it. I think that's actually fairly obvious. And then Nola Edwards. Nola is the leader of the Save Foxhill campaign, and somebody who I'm sure is known to you all, or if she isn't, she will be very soon. Luke, your last name, Luke? Luke Doonan is the executive producer of this film, and so thank you, Luke, for bringing it to Bath. Bob Goodman is our newly appointed cabinet member for development, and he's also a councillor at Combe, so he has a lot of interesting perspectives on what his residents think of the plans that are happening in Foxhill at the moment. And I'm delighted to welcome our new Member of Parliament, Wera Hobhouse, who I whisked off from a drinks party earlier on. I said, you've got to be here. She said, I wouldn't miss this for the world. It's something that's very, very close to my heart. So Wera, thank you for coming. And Rob Appleyard, who is Councillor for Lambridge, a former board member of Curo, and I think he sits on various other panels with the council. My name's Chris Rogers, and when I heard this film was around, I said to Paul, I phoned Paul, I said, why is it not being filmed and screened in Bath? And he said, we don't have a venue, and I said, we'll get you one. So thank you to everybody who's helped me. Thank you to Sally, thank you to Bath Film Festival, and thank you to all for being here. And we'll get on with some questions and answers about this film. I'd like to start with Paul. Paul, you could have called this film Regeneration, not Dispossession. I thought Regeneration was about hope, about new life, about new beginnings. But apparently, as this film has shown, for a lot of people in this country, that's really not the case. Would you like to tell us a bit more about Regeneration?
I think regeneration is a euphemism. So people, as Simon Elwell from Ash says in the film, they hear that their estate is going to be regenerated and they think this is a good, positive process, but it's one of those words that is used to actually explain a process that's very unpleasant. It means demolition, and then it means something new, so in one sense it's correct. And the reason I made this film was when I was a little boy, when my mum was at work, my cousin would look after me on the Aylesbury estate. I had lots of family that lived on the Aylesbury, and so when I found out what was going on, it hit a personal nerve, and the more research that we did into estates in London, Crescent Gardens, Central Hill, Balfron Tower, and then beyond London into Glasgow, Nottingham, and all other places. It's not just in London, it's not just in cities, and it's in Bath. And for me, I've never been to Bath before until today, but I've been in touch with some people from the Save Foxhill campaign, and I'm now aware of it. And we met with a guy called Victor, and I hope he's not going to be the victor in what he's trying to do to Foxhill. And it isn't a black and white issue, and I think that we had a meeting with him earlier on, and I think he probably thinks that he's trying to do right, but I don't think he is. I think that regeneration is a process that is essentially destroying people's homes, and it's one thing to say that your home is worth this much, we're going to give you this much, but you can't put a value on that, and you especially can't put a value on someone's home when you say, okay, this is the market value, we've had it valued at this price, we're going to give you 10%, because those people can't find a home in that area for that value. They can't go across the road, it'll be double the price, because Foxhill as an estate has been deliberately neglected. It has been, I think, and I'm just speaking from people I've spoken to and people that I trust already, it's called managed decline. And when you have a process that has deliberately, let a state fall into a state of disrepair, and then you come to people and say, right, we're going to regenerate it, of course they're going to distrust you. You've seen what's happened in the film in the Haygate. So there's a lot of ill will, and I know it's not a black and white issue, but the reason we made this film was to give those people a voice, to start a conversation. I'm a filmmaker, Luke's a filmmaker. We don't have answers or solutions to how to solve any of this, but maybe people out there do, and maybe this film is the start of something that will help, hopefully, in our society, make us actually value council housing again and reinvest, not purely financially, but also, I think, ethically in its value and its purpose.
Thank you, Paul. So I think what you're saying, amongst other things, is a house is a home. It shouldn't be a tradable economic unit. Those words ring in my ears because I had the pleasure of hosting a hustings in Widcombe when Eleanor on the end there was saying exactly this. Eleanor, is our problem, is it all about the money? One lady in the film said, it's all about the money. Is that where we've gone wrong?
Yeah, I think so. I think, what I believe, and I'm sure a lot of people here believe, is that a house isn't an asset. It isn't something that you just buy as an investment. It's a home, and it's the root of what a good community looks like. And if we've all got decent homes to live in, that's the foundation for all of our living security, and that's where you can prevent social problems from happening within the community if you've got decent homes and security. So that's where the point that I was making at that particular hustings. Yeah. So it shouldn't be about the money at all.
So why is it that we don't recognise that? Why is it we're destroying communities? What's the answer? Where do we need to get back to? Does somebody on the panel want to come in?
I think we do have to recognise that a house needs to be built, or a home needs to be built, and a home needs to be maintained. So it is about money, but it's of course about where the money is. Is it in the private or in the public sector? And I think it's about the lack of money in the public sector. And I think one thing that I want to say tonight, you all know about Grenfell. That has actually thrown into this whole issue a completely new dimension. And we don't know what is actually coming. I mean, we've seen when people just try to refurbish, not just regenerate, but refurbish council homes or social homes. It's done on the cheap. It's been done on the cheap for a long time. And what happens? The fallout from that disaster, and I know it now because I've been sitting in government, and my new brief is communities, local government. So this whole tragedy is part of what I'm, as a shadow brief, responsible for. We don't know as a country what's going to hit us as a fallout from that. It's going to be huge because the compensation and the rehousing and how we are dealing with fire safety across the whole board is going to cost society so much money. I don't know where it's coming from.
So I'm proud to say that I'm a council flat kid, and if my family hadn't been given housing when I was a kid, my family and I would have been on the streets. So I think what's happening, I completely disagree. There is enough money, but what we're dealing with as a country is 35 to 40 years of absolute abuse of social housing. When Margaret Thatcher brought in the right to buy in 1981, she promised there would be 1 for 1 or 1 for 2 for every social housing property. We all know that hasn't happened. It does take things like Grenfell to, sadly, I don't care about compensation, there is enough money in this country. What has happened, and the reason I'm sitting here is I met Paul a year ago. I've worked in housing for 25 years, and as part of this society, I mean the UK, London, the community, I do not want to live in a country where we do not look after people who need social housing and who are at the bottom of the ladder. This is not about money. This country has so much money, but something has happened in the last 10 or 15 years which makes me absolutely sick to the core that we are not looking after the people who need it. This is about greed with private developers, and it's about corruption within many councils.
I have to say I very much agree with what I've just said. And I think I've only been in post for literally a few days, and a couple of days ago I attended my first scrutiny panel. And that scrutiny panel, and there's councillors here who were there, and I said that Grenfell will be a game changer, and it will be a game changer, and it bloody well should be a game changer. I think how social housing has been dealt with over a period of time by all governments as well, not just this government, but governments which have gone on for many years. We have to look at reality. We have had social housing on cheap. There are, we probably will come on to Foxhill a little later, and I'll talk about that probably then, but I very much think that we have to, as a society, look at social housing, and we have to invest in social housing.
It's about redistribution of wealth, and how do we do that? But we can't just say, you know, houses just are being built from bonbons. I mean, they're built because somebody needs to invest in them, and that is the public sector has not invested into social housing, and that's where the problem comes from, and it's done so over decades. We cannot just say it's not to do with money, it's to do with whether the public sector invests into social housing, and it hasn't done so. It's a scandal. I find it miserable, don't get me wrong.
So effectively it's where the money is, and where the money should be, really. Nola?
I've got something to say about Grenfell, and you and I spoke on the day of Grenfell. The worst thing about that was everybody was telling them, nobody listened. Nobody's listening now. I've been shouting for 2 or 3 years about Foxhill. This week was probably somebody's first time you've even heard of it. I've got to say, in Bath it's gathering momentum. I've got to say, Chris, you're brilliant. Bob, you're brilliant. You listen. There's very few people who have listened to us so far. And I say thank you to Zaria, and also to Eleanor, who actually brought Caroline Lucas up to Foxhill in the elections. Some people are listening. Thank you.
Nola, I'd like to ask you to give your perspective on Foxhill in a moment when we move on to that. Okay, so the money's in the wrong place. We do have a situation at Foxhill. Why don't we have enough money in the development at Foxhill to be able to provide, or at least the number of social homes that there are at the moment as part of this regeneration project? It's too bad that Victor was unable to be here with us tonight, but I'm sure that he will suggest reasons for it. And you know, I know there are people who have sympathy with the position of the private developers who, you know, in some ways are caught in this whole thing, perhaps. But I wonder if it's fair to ask Rob to give us a comment about what Curo's particular problem is if they can't re-provide the social homes they should be providing.
It really comes down to the availability of funds. I mean, if we go back to the 3 MOD sites, Curo made a decision. They wanted to bring more social housing into the city because there was big pressure on, because they have quite a large estate of Georgian properties, about 500 plus Georgian properties, which were very difficult to place people into on social incomes because, you know, we didn't want to set people up to fail at the time. They saw this as an opportunity to actually invest in the city. You only have to look at the other 2 sites to see how the private developers are actually putting that in there and the price of those properties in those. What Curo wanted to do, and still want to do, they actually want to develop the 700 homes on the Mulberry site, and they will sell some of those to the private sector. They will sell them at market value, and they would unashamedly take that. 70%. Unashamedly. Hang on, I think I've got the microphone. Thank you. Okay. Polite, isn't it? And they want to use the money they get from the excess from that to actually then look at an opportunity to redevelop Foxhill. Now, no matter what we say here, the government's own statistics put Foxhill as the 11th most deprived ward. Now, they work on that information. Now, nobody over the last 20 or 30 years has actually put any serious investment into Foxhill, and I totally understand the angst people have on you know, that people, we don't like that change. Now, Curo are looking to attempt to actually lift those properties. Those properties, it's not totally that they haven't been maintained or anything like that. They are getting old. I'm not going to go into the own management plan because I can't prove that one way or the other. What I will say is that since Curo have been in existence, not only with Curo but prior to that with some community housing trusts, pretty much year on year they put about £15 million per year into the stock, which is far more than the council had done before. And I think we would agree that in present day we wouldn't, as a council, be putting £15 million into any housing stock because there's so many other pressures that we have on there, everything like that. Everything's not great with Curo in terms of what they have to try and do because they can't manage it all. But here they are looking to actually change the life of the community of Foxhill to improve it. Now there will be what I am interested in is that the number of people that I've been in contact with or being in contact with me that are actually vehemently against what's happening in Foxhill, and I totally understand. You know, we don't like change, and there's many reasons around it. But they are people that have actually bought their homes on the right to buy. The right to buy, in my view, was the worst thing that ever happened. The Tories brought that back in the 80s. It was at a time where we were building houses, and for whatever reason, the house supply dipped. And the money from right to buy does not go back to the housing association, it goes into the local council. Now, the local council are sitting on £3 to £4 million at the moment, and they're not investing that in social housing.
Rob, how is this elevating our community? How is it elevating our community?
Well, I think that I don't think we need a history of how we've. It's been a systematic failure by governments, not just the Conservative government, the Blair government, and so on, that would put us into this position. I'd like to ask Nola to tell us about what's really happening in Foxhill. Is this a community that needs regeneration? Does it want regeneration?
This community has not been asked at all if it wants regeneration. We haven't been asked, Rob. I live there.
We don't need it.
We
just need it.
The first most of us found out about this regeneration was to attend a public meeting. We went to a meeting to look and see how our estate was going to be expanded to the MOD site. So we wanted to see what our new neighbours would look like. We went to have a look there, looked at the plans. None of our homes existed. Not one. 542 homes demolished. You didn't ask me what I wanted. You didn't ask any of my neighbours what we wanted. You asked us if we'd like a school on the MOD site, which we said, actually, isn't that for the government department to know if we need a school? You asked us a lot of questions. You didn't tell us once that you intended to demolish our homes. And our homes, we've got a very strong community. There are people from Foxhill in this room here now. Do any of you want your home knocked down?
No. Thank you very much. You're a Curo tenant. Can you tell us a little bit about your landlord, how they treat you, and what you feel about their plans? You don't live in Foxhill, but you obviously know some
I wasn't specifically going to talk about. No, I'm not allowed to swear. I wasn't specifically going to talk about Curo, but as a Londoner, and you know, I've seen this happen to London over the years. I'm now seeing what's happening in Foxhill. But the one thing that I'm still finding, and again with the audience here, with respect, it's the demonisation of the people who live in the council homes. Because a lot of us do work, a lot of us are working for reasons that we don't work. A lot of us have got other issues going on. But the fact that I think the film has highlighted the fact that we are being demonised. You know, we're sitting on our iPhones watching Jeremy Kyle smoking all day long because of the benefit porn. And I think some of the attitudes that is what we are having looked at. You know, I've spoken to people about social housing, and they do think that, well, if Foxhill doesn't, needs to have some reinvestment, they should go and live in Cant or Bristol, or like in London, Newham had to move to Birmingham. So you lose your connections, your jobs, where your kids go to school. You know, this is what we're up against, and it is just this underfunding. We deserve, if we, you know, I don't have a well-paid job, but I still deserve to have a home to live in. And I have to say, the one thing I will say about Curo, thank you. The one thing about Curo, with the part-by-part rent, and it's not just Curo, it's in other places, it's shoddy. It's not quality building. There's a lot of things going on. I live in a flat that's 50 years old. My son had a part-by-part rent with Curo that's 5 years old. His kitchen's going funny, the bathroom, all the taps are leaking, the gardens, you know, everything's a bit knackered, excuse my language. Whereas my house that was built 50 years ago is as solid as the day it was built. So I think reinvestment, quality investment, and stop. You know, I would like to say you just need to stop looking at people on social housing as not worthy.
I was recently having a conversation with somebody who's involved with what's going on at Foxhill, and I was told by that gentleman, Chris, you can't stand in the way of the gentrification of Bath. And actually that one thing made me see red. I am not affected by this particular situation. I'm one of the lucky ones, and I think a lot of us in this house are probably the same. But I thought, you know, that is where the buck stops, and that is unacceptable. You can't stand in the way, and this is what we're standing in the way of, or this is what I like to stand in the way of, you know, the vulnerable, disaffected people.
In 1948, when I was 4 years old, my parents and me moved into social housing, or council housing as was then. For them, it was a massive step up. I'm 70 now, and except for my time in the army, I've always lived in social housing. But now, it's deemed as people moving into social housing as a step down. I think the main problem with social housing in this country is the people who plan it, administer it, and run it don't live in social housing.
I live on Foxhill, and I would welcome anybody here who doesn't know about Foxhill. Come and see me afterwards. You're welcome to come and see our lovely house, which we love, and we have a garden with vegetables and everything in it. But remember the 243 social tenants who are in threat of losing their houses. They're having to go onto home search. There are people who've been in their houses for 40, 50, 60 years, brought up families, and they're in their 70s, 80s, and they're expected to go on a website to find a new home. And it's absolutely terrible.
Very briefly, what is happening at Foxhill?
What's happening in Foxhill? Foxhill was a council housing estate. When I first moved into Foxhill, it was owned by the council, and it was maintained. It was a nice little place to live. Bath is surrounded by council estates. Unfortunately, Bath is getting like, well, it is like London. Property is very expensive. Land is very expensive. So we're running out of places for homes for people can afford to live. Curo took over the council housing, all of the council housing in Bath, which was paid by all of you. All of you paid for that. And it's now going to be taken away, knocked down. Where I live, there's two sites. One is the old MOD site, which is separate from where I live, where people have lived for generations. And that one you want to knock down 542 homes, put in 707, and of those, was it 100? 125 will be left for rent, so that community's gone.
And a cable car as well.
And a cable car, which is how a lot of you heard about Foxhill. And do you know why they want the cable car? Because they're marketing the homes in London. It makes it nice and easy to get to the station.
I have no issues at all with Mulberry Park and the 30% of affordable housing with that. Fantastic, don't have an issue. But to start then to bring that in and try to suggest that there's no loss of social housing because of the regeneration of Foxhill within it is absolutely preposterous. And to lose 250 social housing, quite frankly, is not acceptable in any way whatsoever.
I was just sort of a very, very quick comment. To leave social housing to the private sector has utterly failed, and that's what needs to change. It has to go back into public hands. How we are doing that is obviously a big political question, but that's where it has to go. It cannot be left to the private sector. Utterly failed. So let's do something about that.
There's a really important point. There's a couple of good points actually. Firstly, on behalf of Paul and I'd just like to say that we didn't make this film, we didn't self-fund it and spend 14 months working our fingers to the bone because we keep selling out at every cinema we go to, that we're not lying and this is a massive issue. Now, I'm really worried about the comment from you, a gentleman there in the blue shirt, saying that you're being told that you have to go on home search. I was told, Paul is my witness, by the CEO of, Victor, the CEO of Curo, that no social housing tenant will be forced off-site at all. Every single social housing tenant will be given a home in one of the two sites next to each other. Curo and most developers are not there to make your life easier. They do want to land grab your homes, they do want to knock them down, they do want to break your communities, and guess why? Because they're greedy. I do not know what has happened in the UK over the last 15 years, but it ain't great that we're treating people like this. That's why we made the film. And lastly, I'd like to say Paul and I have decided today, and I'm going to fund it to whatever it costs, we're going to make a film about this area and this estate of Foxhill.
As Luke said, we're going to make a film, which we decided about 10 minutes ago.
Did he tell you? Did he tell you first?
Well,
did he consult you?
We had a bit of a chat about it earlier, but after being in this meeting, and I just leant over and said, we've got to do this. So I'm going to spend, and he's going to be spending a lot more time in Bath. And the woman that said, what can we do? You get involved in this film, support this film, put pressure on Curo. We have an honourable member here. I hope you'll support us with this film and do what you can. There's a very fine filmmaker that lives in this part of the world called Ken Loach, and I think Ken Loach will hopefully get behind this too.
He said he would have been here tonight but for a prior engagement, so he is behind.
So I think we've just declared war on Curo.
Thanks very much for showing this film, for raising awareness. I think that certainly the limited political experience that I've had, people are talking about helping first-time buyers on buying their first new home, and to me that's just nonsense. We need to have more affordable homes, not only in social rented public sector, but also personally I rent privately. 50% of my salary goes on my rent, and why aren't rents being controlled, right? So there's a whole massive problem there with housing and how homes are being used and abused by people who just want to make a quick profit. So thanks very much for this evening, and I want to help you with your film.
Any final comments from the audience just before we wrap up, Luke? Any final comments? A brief one, Sally?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to also offer support, but just reiterate kind of the extent of the consequences of this issue, because I work with Bath Welcome's refugees, and Baines has got a really good record so far of settling lots of families from Syria, but our biggest obstacle is the fact that there just isn't housing to resettle these families. Our most recent family actually have just moved into the Foxhill estate, and they've been welcomed with open arms. The community that they have there already after a week is phenomenal, but we cannot take any more families until the housing provision is better. We've had to resort to appealing to private landlords, who many of them are sitting on empty properties that still won't accept the local housing allowance rate. So the sort of repercussions of this are huge, because everyone's saying we should take more refugees. Well, we can't, because we ain't got the houses. So while people are sitting on them empty, what are we going to do, basically? I just sort of want to reiterate that the repercussions are somewhat bigger.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to Paul, thank you to Luke, Any final words from the man who paid for this? I'd just like to say also thank you to Chris for coming in here and turning this into an impromptu cinema for us. So, thank you, I'm sure you'll be seeing these guys again. All right, okay. Apology accepted, and see you all again, no doubt. So thank you for coming. Bye-bye.